Another edition of Riding Home here on Dog Post, creeping on top of Christmas, which means we're just past signing day. Dean, Legge, and Matt DeBary. We've been covering recruiting at Georgia for combined for almost 30 years, and this was an interesting signing day for Georgia. The thing about it is, Matt, that we didn't really do a wrap on signing day, not because it was so bizarre, but in the time since signing day now, in these last few days, we now know Jordan Burch did not sign with South Carolina. We now know that Zach Evans, it seems, is probably going to Georgia. It seems that Darnell Washington and Keely Ringo are probably going to Georgia. This class for Georgia could certainly look very different on the traditional signing day than it did in the December signing day.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And again, if you're on Dog Post, you know that I've been saying since July that Georgia was leading for Keely Ringo and Darnell Washington. So that might surprise some people when they pick Georgia in a few days at their All-Star game and sign with them. But again, this is something that I've been talking about for a while now. But the Zach Evans news was big. Obviously, he was a strong Georgia lean in early September when we thought he was going to commit to Georgia publicly. Then he's had some off the field issues, concerns, whatever you want to call it, and delayed that. Now it appears Georgia's back in the mix over LSU and A&M. And I was told by a close source over there with Zach Evans that he did sign during the early signing period, and he, like Keely Ringo and Darnell Washington, will make his decision at the Under Armour game. I believe he's at the Under Armour All-American game, which is January 2nd, along with Darnell Washington. So those two guys will make their announcements. And again, I've said Georgia for Darnell Washington for, since the summer, still feel that way. And so that should be, no surprise to anyone who either listens to us or is a Dog Post member. Again, I do expect Keely Ringo to choose Georgia. I believe he's already signed with Georgia, kept it quiet, obviously, and will pick Georgia on the 4th. So, yeah, it was a strong signing day once again. And really the only guy, I guess you could say they missed on C.J. Stroud, even though he was leaning towards Ohio State for a while now. I know there was some late Georgia buzz there. So they didn't get him, which, we kind of anticipated. And Jordan Burch was really the only guy they missed on. And again, Jordan Burch has not signed, and Georgia still is in the mix with him. You have to say that. You can't really rule Georgia out just yet. He's verbally committed to South Carolina. If he was 100%, he would have signed the papers, You would think. So Georgia did very well. They got pretty much everyone that they were in on except those two. And again, they still have a good shot at Jordan Burch, a guy that you went to go see. You covered it. You've seen him play. You know a lot about Burch, and that's good because they don't really give out a whole lot of information to the media and guys like myself. So it's been a tough one to cover. I really wasn't sure where he was going to go. We had heard that he might be picking Georgia a few days leading up to signing day. Obviously, he picked South Carolina. Big surprise to me, but I don't think anyone really had a good idea where he was going. Verbally committed to South Carolina, still has yet to sign. So another big, crazy signing day, and one that Kirby Smart did a really good job at.
So on the Jordan Burch stuff, coming into that thing, it was very quiet. It was hard to know really what was going on there. The word I had always been given was, the true stunner would be him picking Clemson. So
Right.
that LSU thought they had him coming into signing day. Then he goes to Georgia. It really did look like it was going to be Georgia. These are all, I don't know why I talk that way. It appeared most likely that it would be Georgia.
Right.
We didn't know anything.
Well,
So
again, Kirby Smart went and visited him all day Thursday. I guess 6 days before signing day, he took his official visit to Georgia the weekend before. So, yeah, it seemed like Georgia was trending and had a lot of momentum going into signing day, and they didn't get him. But, again, there's still a chance.
there is still a chance. I'm a
You're not
little
too optimistic
Yeah,
about
I'm a
Georgia's
little more
chances.
skeptical now only
Right.
because I just there's going to be plenty of in town pressure for him to stay in Columbia and do and play for Carolina. But the other thing to remember is that his name is escaping me all of a sudden, but the other defensive lineman from Hammond, who is
Alex Huntley.
So Alex Huntley is verbally committed to South Carolina. It's my understanding he did not sign with Carolina either. So
maybe it's a school thing. They're all signing in February.
yeah, I don't think the school that has the chickens on the side of their helmet is really buying that. And
Right.
I think they wanted them in. Period.
Absolutely.
And if it were the case, man, that you know that was what was going on, why wouldn't you verbalize that?
Yeah, and they did close really well. I think they do have a good quarterback, Luke Doty, coming in. They got Marshawn Lloyd,
Yeah,
held on to him.
He's probably their best player coming in.
No doubt. But yeah, they have to be a little worried that those two kids, Jordan Burch and Alex Huntley, didn't sign. Alex Huntley's been committed for a long time, and Jordan Burch is the best signee they've had since Jadeveon Clowney. But
He's
obviously not signed it yet.
Yeah, he is not Jadeveon Clowney. They're
Right,
very different players. There have been a lot of comparisons between the two, to which I would say they are not in the same universe as seniors in high school. So the point is that with Jordan Burch being a 5-star kid, an edge setter to me, at least in the time that I saw him play live, a gifted athlete. I mean, Jadeveon Clowney never played running back, so that I'm aware of. So the kid he's certainly gifted. He plays in a smaller level school. Hammond is a private school on the east side of Columbia. And, it's very hoity-toity, a very nice school, by the way. But the kid didn't sign. So you've got a slew of kids, You've got several kids hanging out there for Georgia. You've got Broderick.
Absolutely. Yep.
You got. I'll just start and you can finish. Broderick, Zach, and then you've got let's take the global view that we don't know for a fact that Ringo and Washington and Evans signed. I want to say this on this show right now. I would be completely floored if Ringo did not sign with Georgia. I mean, it would stun me if he did not come in.
I went
the other two,
and it felt good about Georgia's chances there. And I would put Darnell Washington in the same boat. I know Tennessee thinks they've got a really good shot.
I'm just trying to be as clear as possible that with Ringo, it would be stunning to me. I don't know as much on Washington, but with Ringo, I would be stunned if that was not the case. Go ahead.
You and every other Dog Post member too. Again, we've been talking about it for months now, and I haven't changed my opinion on Ringo, and the same for Darnell Washington. Again, I know Tennessee. I think they feel pretty good, but most of the people that cover Tennessee that I've spoken with think they are number 2 behind Georgia. Mm-hmm. And all the crystal balls have come in from the other site, but again, Dog Post has been saying Georgia for Darnell Washington and Kelee Ringo since July, and we've said it on this podcast multiple times. So those are game-changing players, and another game-changing player they got was Jermaine Burton, a guy that we've seen for a long time.
Yeah,
I thought that might have been the biggest deal for Georgia on signing day. Getting Arian Smith was big because he's the track star. He's going to help there. But Jermaine Burton is a complete wide receiver, a guy who's going to come in and push for playing time. He does all the right things at the receiver position. He's not 6'4", but he plays bigger than his 6'1.5", 6'2" height. But he's fast. He's got great body control in the air. He can make the spectacular catch. Very solid, reliable hands. And I think he was IMG Academy's best playmaking receiver as a sophomore. And then went to California and just absolutely took over against those California kids out there. He's a big deal, and for Georgia to get the flip there, I thought was a really, really big deal. And a lot of credit to Kirby Smart and Cortez Hankton and those guys for staying on him when it appeared that he was firm to LSU. They came in, got the flip on signing day. I thought that was a really big deal for them.
I do kind of want to go over something real quick here because when you look at who is still out there to be had, including these are kids who have not signed. Obviously Kelee is a top 10.
He's a top 10 player in the country.
So Darnell, Kelee, and Zach Evans are all consensus top 15 players in the country. That's 3 5-star kids. And then Broderick, who is committed to Georgia, but I feel like they still have work to do. Uh, he's a top 20 player as well. Georgia does not have any of those 4 in the boat right now. They could close their class, and just with those 4, they could close with 4 5-star kids that are not in the boat now. That would be a stunning, close. That would be quite a crescendo. I also want to, before you say something, I do want to say, well, people say, well, you're doing all this and you're not winning the national championship. Okay, I mean, that's like saying you're doing all this, and I mean that the flip side of that is as ridiculous as saying, well, you're not in the Outback Bowl anymore. I mean, the thing about it
Well,
is, you have
yeah,
to
go ahead.
accumulate
Sorry.
you have to accumulate talent, and you can't prove the negative. I mean, it is reality that they have not yet won the national championship, but we know they didn't win the national championship the way that they had been recruiting. We don't know that they won't win it moving forward with this type of kid.
Well, they've ended their class with number one ranked recruiting class just one time,
Right.
and that was in 2018. A lot of that has to do with Justin Fields, who's no longer with the team.
Right.
5-star Brenton Cox, no longer on the team. 5-star Zamir White had 2 major knee injuries after he committed to Georgia. So those are 3 5-star guys that Georgia signed in that number one recruiting class who are no longer on the team. So everyone likes to look, oh, Georgia signed the number one recruiting class. Looking back on it, well, I mean, take those 3 away, and no, they didn't. So,
excuse me, but I mean, look, I don't know. I mean, that's just people trying to hate, and it's just
but
stupid.
you can't look at these recruiting rankings anymore because the transfer portal's out there.
Yeah.
There's going to be kids who Georgia signs in this class who are going to transfer. There's going to be kids in Alabama's class, Florida's class. I mean, and it's such a big deal in college football now. You can't just go back and say, oh, Georgia did this in 2016, 2017, and 2018. Because, I mean, you've got the transfer portal now. None of these kids are there through their college career.
In the time that Kirby has been at Georgia, the teams that have won the national championship are Clemson and Alabama.
Yeah.
So does that mean does that mean that everyone else has failed? I mean, I'm confused.
It should. By that, someone put on Twitter, I forgot who it was, but it was like, who does the least with the most? Alabama, and everyone said Kirby Smart, and I'm thinking
it would be Alabama.
Thinking, how?
In this case, it would be Alabama, and I'm not even hating. I mean, everybody wants to recruit like Alabama has over a 10-year period. They just haven't. So whenever Bama doesn't win the national championship or eats a 2-loss season in the regular season, everybody's got their knives out.
Yeah.
Alabama doesn't have the path Clemson does, and in the future, Alabama doesn't have the path that Oregon will. Those 2 schools, and to some degree Oklahoma, are in unique positions that the Big Ten schools and the SEC schools, they don't have. I mean, Ohio State has recruited really well. Ohio State, Georgia,
as
Alabama.
Well as anyone.
Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama, and Clemson. Ohio State, Alabama, and Georgia have recruited better than anyone, period.
If you put Justin Fields in Ohio State's 2018 recruiting class, they're number one.
Right, but the path for all 3 of those schools is overwhelmingly difficult compared to other programs and other situations. The 3 of the 5 conferences just don't have difficult paths. But anyway, it's off the subject. But the point is, they could close with 4 or 5-star kids that they do not currently have. I mean, like right now, they have the consensus number 3, I think, class in the country. That's not bad.
Yeah,
but if they close, Matt,
Cedric Van Pran's still out there too.
That's correct.
Another solid 4-star.
If they were to
top 100 kid,
I think Clemson's going to get one more kid. I don't know about Ohio State and Alabama. LSU could close, but boy, they had a tough day on Wednesday. Georgia may close with the number 1 class. It's actually starting to look more like that than not.
I mean, if you just look at what's happened in the past signing days, you have to assume that Kirby Smart is going to close as well as anyone in February, like he does every, the past 6 signing days between the past 3 years. So he's going to close well in February. He already closed well with a few guys who will make their announcements that we talked about earlier. But Clemson's class is almost full. They might have room for one more kid. And if Georgia throws on 3, maybe 4 more 5-stars, I mean, I never thought they would get the number 1 class in the country in 2020. But man, they could do it again, and I shouldn't be surprised.
No, it shouldn't.
Um, I shouldn't, but I didn't think they'd be able to pass Clemson in 2020, and it looks like they very well could.
Well, we did not anticipate at the time that Zach Evans would be involved in all of this.
What a roller coaster of recruitment that one's been. I mean,
Yeah.
there's been some crazy ones over the years, but he and Jordan Burch are two up there, two of the all-time recruitments
Yeah,
the
and
past few years.
I'm not even talking about adding Birch. You
Yeah,
know, I mean, if you, I because I don't think they will, but you just add Ringo, Washington, and Evans, and you keep
yeah,
Jones, you beat Clemson I mean, you're past Clemson and Bama.
yeah.
So, I mean, there is criticism to be had of Kirby Smart and the coaching. Anytime you lose, there's always criticism to be had. But come on now, I mean, Georgia's lost 3 games in the regular season in the last 3 years. Give me a break.
A big part of his job is recruiting, and he
That's the
gets an
number
A
one job.
plus
That's the
for
number one
that.
job.
Yeah, it's the number one job, and
This is not a top
he's
15.
killing.
This is not a top 15 program anymore. This is a top 5 program.
Yeah, but people still say he does the least with the most. It's crazy. They're a top 5 program. They recruit like it,
Yeah.
and it resembles that in the final standings. Georgia will probably be in the top 5 at the end of the year. They didn't win the national championship, but I mean, LSU is really good, and they have
Oh,
the
no
Heisman
question.
Trophy winner. I mean, everyone expects Georgia to play for it every year, but maybe they will soon. Next year they're going to have a really big year. It depends on if Jake Fromm comes back or not. There's still a lot of question marks, but Georgia will be in the conversation for the national championship for the next few years, and it's not just until week 5 or week 7 until they lose a couple. I mean, the last 3 years they've been in the national championship playoff hunt all the way until that SEC championship game,
the only
and sometimes farther.
the only 3 schools. Well, I think actually someone can correct me. I know there have been 2 for sure. Only it feels like the only 2 schools that have hit championship weekend controlling their own destiny these last 3 years have been Georgia and Clemson. Now that's not by mistake. I don't think Ohio State controlled its own destiny in 2017 because they didn't get into the playoff. So, look, I didn't play high level college, athletics, but I played college athletics, and it's about the Jimmies and Joes. Period. And if you don't have them, you can't coach them.
Georgia's got them. They can't lose to South Carolina.
No,
next year and all
yeah,
that. But they've got the talent each year and year out to compete for championships, and a lot of teams don't.
If you would dribble it off your foot, the equivalent, I don't know what the equivalent in basketball to 4 turnovers is in football, but it's probably 25 turnovers. If you turn it over 25 times in a basketball game, you're going to lose. Period. Yeah. And that's what happened against South Carolina. That was not about talent. They ran up and down the field on Carolina. So, but I think we've made the point. Stay tuned to Dog Post. Thanks for listening. Dean Legge and Matt DeBary. We're going to get you out of here soon. We got photos of the decade coming up later this week. Check that out. Matt, thanks for joining me. Everybody check out the website. Make sure to subscribe here on YouTube.